So in our previous class, we have discussed about ribbon workbench. What is ribbon workbench? Ribbon workbench is a tool which we will use to customize the ribbon buttons. So if you see in CRM, every button is placed on a ribbon. So if I go to if I click on any entity, I can see the buttons which are placed in a home layer. Okay. So buttons are placed in layers. We have three different layers. One is a form layer, home layer, is a subgrid layer. So layers are placed in form, home, and subgrid. On layers, we will place the buttons. So if you get a requirement wherein if you want to create a new button over here, what you will do, you will create a button in home layer. If you want to create a button in inside the form, when a record is while when we click on new form or if we open any existing record, a form will open where we can see the fields and the values. So in that form, if you want to place a button, then you have to add the button on the form layer. Subgrid also have the button. Subgrid also, if we want to create any button, we have to place the button on the subgrid layer. Then we have discussed, we have created one custom button, and on click of the button we have seen two actions: open URL action, JavaScript action. So this is the button. So when we click on the button, so we are showing this notification. Okay, this is a JavaScript action that we have configured. And today also we will see how to hide and show this button based on some condition. Let's say I don't want to display this button on the new form. So when I click new, there is no data, right? The, the new form doesn't have any data. In that case, why should I need to show my uh, button? There is no point of showing this button for the new record. Once the record is created, then I need to show this button. So we need to hide and show this button. How we will do? We have to create a JavaScript. Okay. So I will write this JavaScript function hide show button. This is the function. I will pass the execution context. So while working in the CRM forms, we are using this where form context is equals to execution context dot get form context. Because while registering the JavaScript function in the CRM form, we have a checkbox to pass the execution context. But here we directly have a CRM parameter in the ribbon workbench. So instead of using all this code, I'll use this. Form context is equals to execution context. So in this form context, this execution context will be mapped. Where this execution context will come from the CRM parameter that we will enable in the CRM. Sorry, in ribbon workbench. Then I will use form type. So we have created somewhere form type where form type is equals to form context dot UI dot get form type. So what is the new form type value? If form type is equals to 1, which means it is a new form. So in that case, what we need to do, we need to hide a button. So in order to hide a button, we need to use this code return false. Other than 1, if any existing record or read only form, we have to display the button return true. Clear? The script is clear. I have created a function passing the execution context, and then we are using form type. We are getting the form type value, and then we are checking whether the form type is new form or other than new form. If it is a new form, then we are using return false, else return true. Now we will register the script. Copy. I will use this web resource. Okay, web resource is published. Now let's open the ribbon workbench tool. I'll go to tools, use the ribbon workbench. We have placed the entity in this solution. Okay, so let's see what else we have in this. We have created this solution. Okay, so once the entity is loaded, now tell me what we need to do. We need to register an action, or in previous class we have registered two actions. Those action will execute on button click. When we click on the button, then it was showing. When I click on button, I'm showing this notification. So this action is triggering on button click. Now I don't want to place this function, JavaScript function, on button click, right? Because I want to hide and show the button based on some condition. The condition is I'm checking the form type as create form, that is new form, or it the form have any value. So in that case, we have to use enable rules. So we have in CRM we have two types of rules in ribbon workbench. One is the display rules, and one is the enable rule. So both will do the same. Display rule will execute at the client side. Enable rule will execute at the server side. And moreover, if we want to use some custom logic, we have to use the enable rule. Now, based on some condition, if you want to hide and show the button, for example, this is a new record. If I open any record, this record, this record is active, right? This record is active because I can modify it. So on active records, if you want to show the button, then you can use the display rule. If you want to use some logic, then you have to use the enable rule. So now let's go to the solution. We have created this button. Select the button. We have the command. So click on the command. Command have this action. This action will execute when the button is clicked. Then we have to use display rules. We can use enable rules. So I'll just show you what is enable, what is display rule. This is a display rule. So I can create a display rule, add new rule. So here, if I go to display rule, let me delete it. ID. So here nothing is displaying. Let's try to create enable rule. New. Okay. Okay. So here I can add the step. Add step. If you see, I can add these many steps. Form state rule, page rule, SKU rule, value rule. So it have different conditions and different action. So now we are using going to use custom rule because we are using custom logic. So default will be false, invert will be true. The function name is this. Library, we have created a web resource, JavaScript web resource. So what we need to do, we need to pass the parameter because we are using execution context as a parameter. So in code, it is a execution context, but from ribbon workbench, it will be a CRM parameter. Add parameter, CRM parameter. So value will be a primary control. Okay. So once you have all these, then you have created enable rule. Let's select the enable rule in our command because command is associated with button. See, we cannot directly apply this directly in the button because we whatever we do, we will do in a command. Command will have all the action, button click action, visibility rules, and different conditions. So we have to select the command. We have created the enable rule. Add enable rule. This is the enable rule that we have created. Select this enable rule. Let's publish. The publish is going to take a little while. Let's wait for. Okay, so it thrown this exception. Let's see if it is published in the backend or not. Refresh. Action is triggering. No, it's not refresh. Let's try to check whether the code. We have this code. It's not executing means it's not published properly. Let me publish again. So till it publish, I will explain you uh, another one. So here we are working on the ribbon buttons, right? So the ribbon buttons, it's a normal classic ribbon buttons. We used to work on this from very long back, like 2011, 2013, 2016, and now in Dynamics 365 we are using these buttons. Now in Dynamics 365 we got one new feature where we call as smart buttons. So this smart button feature is recently uh, launched. So we can use the smart buttons. Let's say if we have a requirement, you have a button similar like this as a approve the record. Now you want to, when you click on the button, you want to execute the workflow. So we don't have direct option. What is indirect option? What you think? How you will trigger your workflow when a button is clicked? Can anybody guess? You have to guess now because we are almost end of the classes.
Can you repeat the question once again, please?
Okay, so I have a approve button. When I click on approve, I need to execute a workflow.
Okay.
That workflow will send the assign this record to approver. Let's say I'm a requester, I'm creating a loan record. Okay, user one is the approver. Approver is a lookup field
Okay.
here. I will select the approver and I will click the button send for approval. So when I click on this button, this record should go to the selected approval here. So thus this action
Okay.
will be done by the workflow, but the thing is we need to execute this workflow on button click.
Okay. When we click on the execute button, it has to trigger the workflow, and the workflow has to send it to the selected approval, right?
Yeah, just think what workflow can do, how we can trigger the workflow. Okay, I will give you an hint. So whenever a button is clicked, on button click, I will register an action. That action will update some field. That field will be a uh, Approval
Sorry,
sent.
repeat the send option.
Approval sent. It will be yes or no. By default, this value will be no when you create a record. When button is clicked, I will update this field to yes. Now tell me how you will trigger. So I have given an hint wherein when I click the button sent for approval, I will update one of the field in the CRM on button click. That field will be, I will create one two option field, approval sent to yes or no. By default value will be no. On button click, I will update the status to yes. So we can create a workflow. We can select the triggering point as fields change, and we can select this field change of this field. Then my workflow will execute. My workflow will execute if I select this field as a triggering point in the field change of the workflow. It will trigger, right? Workflow will trigger because I have selected the triggering point
Yes,
as
sir.
this field. I'm updating this field. So direct option, directly trigger of workflow on button click, we don't have the feature using the classic buttons. How to do? We have to maintain another field in the backend. This is the field. I will update this field. I will configure my workflow on this field. So on button click, this field value will be updated from no to yes. Since the field changes, value changes, my workflow will also be triggered. It's a workaround. Now using smart buttons, we can directly configure the workflow that needs to be executed on button click. Okay, so the smart buttons, I will give you this solution. Take this solution and you can download this from here. It's a managed solution. Download this solution and import in your CRM. So once you import, you will see a smart button here. As of now, this section is disabled in your XRM toolbox because your CRM is not connected with the smart button solution. So once you install this solution, download this solution and install this solution in your CRM, then you will see these smart buttons in your XRM toolbox when you connect it to the CRM. Let's see, it got refreshed. See, everything will may not be the direct solution. There could be a different workaround that we need to do. Just think, when the workflow will execute. So similarly, you need to think how it can be executed, what I need to perform. Then you will easily find the complex solution as well. Okay, it's still not published. I will publish again. Publish. So as in interview using ribbon workbench, you will be getting the questions as where are the uh, where are the places I can place the buttons. So these are the layers. Difference between display rule and enable rule. How to hide a button based on condition. Okay, and then how you will execute workflow on button click. So you can give these two solutions. So using classic button, I have to create a Boolean field, two options field. On button click, I will update the field value. On field change, I will configure the workflow. The second solution is using smart buttons.
Sir, in real time, we will be having this option enabled, sir, smart button.
Yeah, it is up to us. If there is any requirement from the client, if we want to enable the smart buttons in our CRM in real time, it's a simple solution only. It's not a paid one.
Okay.
You can very well install.
Okay, sir.
See, there are something which will be, premium, which will not be available as a free. Then you need to discuss with your manager whether this is applicable, and if the client is ready to spend money on that solution, paid solution, then we can purchase. But this is a open source. It's a free of cost. So you can download and you can enable it. So every project nowadays, every project is using the smart buttons. So I will let you guys to do this task. Task, you have a loan entity. Okay. In loan entity, create approve button, approve button, reject button. You will create these two buttons. Okay. On button click, approve button. When approve button is clicked, then send or assign the record to approver. Where you will maintain the approver, create lookup field on user entity. Here, create a lookup field as a approver. Select the lookup for user entity. You will select, like, for example, if I am creating, I will select approver as user one. So when button click, then the record is should be assigned to from the created on user or owner to the selected user here. Clear? Approve. When I click approve button, assign the record to approver. Send email notification to approver. When reject button is clicked, then deactivate the record with the status as rejected. These are the button actions. Now, by default, new form, approve and reject button should not be visible by default. Okay. Once record is created, only approve button should display, reject button should be hidden. Once the record approved, once the record approved, there is no point of rejection. Okay. Uh, Once record is created, approve button, and we will make the reject button visible. Reject button. Okay. Okay. So when reject button is clicked, deactivate the record and change the status as rejected. Clear on the requirement?
Yes, sir.
It's up to you. Think the solution, work on in your way. Oh, how it is feasible, how you can able to implement. You can do this. Let me know if the task is clear. I will explain you again.
Clear, sir.
Okay, I will just show you how to place the smart button. Okay, and how we can configure the workflow. So, so we know how to drag and drop the normal toolbox classic button. So run report under smart button, we have run report, run workflow, run webhook, quick JS, open dialog. So in our case, we have to use the run workflow button. Title, workflow name. So we don't have it any workflow here. So for example, I will create. So I have given the title of the button, workflow name that we have created, start workflow confirmation text, success callback, error callback. If the workflow is succeeded, what we need to show. If the workflow is failed, what we need to show. So we have this button, dialog button, uh, show alert. So instead of all this, loan assigned to approver. Something went wrong. Once you configure all this, click OK. So this is the button name, success callback, error callback, the workflow name. So for everyone, it is taking this much time. If you worked on this ribbon solution, any anyone worked in the weekend on this ribbon buttons? Ideally, it should be published. It won't take this much time because we have only one entity in the solution. If the solution have multiple entities, then it will take time. Let's see if it keep throwing the error. Okay, this is working in reverse way. If you see, we have created this function show hide button, form context, execution context, form type is equals to 1, then it should hide. So it is showing for the new form. When I open the existing form, the button is hidden. So the reason might be solution elements, enable rule, default to true and invert to false. And this button we placed smart button. In this smart button, we have given the title as send for approval, workflow name. This is the confirmation text, success callback, error callback. I'll publish it finally. If it published properly, then I will just show you how the smart button will look like this in the form and what happened when we click on the smart button. If it fails, this is the way. I will let you guys to try. But the thing is, since we are on-demandingly executing the workflow, when you are, if any workflow that you need to execute from the smart button, you should not configure the triggering point. You should select the workflow as on-demand process, because on-demandly we are calling. When is the on-demand? On button click. Just only that is the point to be remember. So if you if you configure the triggering point and you execute enable the same workflow in the button, then when it will work on the button click and it will work in the triggering point. So there is no point. So whenever the workflow needs to be executed on demandly, when the button is clicked, then only the record should go to the approver. So that is the reason for smart buttons, when we are using run workflow smart button, we need to select the workflow as a on-demand process. If you see, I have selected as on-demand process. I haven't selected any triggering point here. And moreover, you need to change the scope from user to organization. Since I have only one user in the CRM, that's my login. So it will work for me, but in real time, if we have multiple users, so we need to execute the workflow for all the users, then we will be selecting the scope as organization. Otherwise, only the record owner can send the approval. Okay. Now this button is visible. Send for approval. So this is the prompt text that we have given. Running workflow, loan assigned to approver. This is a success callback. And we are updating the address to send for approval. I will show you for another record. Active. If you see the address is this. I am business rule 3. Okay. So what I have done, I have created a smart button. In the smart button, I'm giving the confirmation text as, are you sure to send loan request to approver? So in this workflow, I'm just updating the field value as send for approval. So now when I click on this button, my on-demand workflow will trigger. My on-demand workflow have only one action, update loan, updating a loan record. What I am updating? I am updating the address field as sent for approval. So now if I click on this button, send for approval, I can see the prompt confirmation text that I have configured over here. When I click OK, it's running and loan assigned to approval. This is loan assigned to approval. It is a success callback. In a dialog, it's showing. Click OK, updated. And demo button is getting displayed over here. When I click new, demo button is hidden. Why it is hidden? Because we have given the condition to hide for the new form. For existing form, if the form have any value, then it will button will be displayed over here. Since it is a not new form, it's the update form. The form have the values. It's a form type 2. So we are only hiding the button on form type 1.